Good afternoon everyone, welcome to another video. I'm Maz and today I'm in Newport, South Wales. And in today's video I'll be trying out this Jaguar XKR X100 generation. A huge thank you to Evolve Newport for this opportunity. I've always been interested in the XK, so it's great to see what this car is like. Now a quick overview, the Jaguar XK X100 generation ran from 1996 to 2006. This particular one is an XKR, the fast variant, and the non-R variants are known as XK8s. This car replaces the Jaguar XJS. Now, originally, Jaguar wanted to replace the XJS earlier, but then Ford, who owned Jaguar at the time, cancelled the project, and Aston Martin, who were also owned by Ford at the time, ended up getting that project and turned it into the DB7, despite having XJS underpinnings and a Jaguar supercharged 3.2 straight six. Eventually the XJS got replaced 2 years later. Again, the XK8 was supposed to be called the F-Type, but in '95 MG launched another sports car called the MGF, so they had to change the name once again. So that was not one, but two attempts on making an F-Type, or at least the F-Type name. These were the first Jaguars to come with the AJ-V8. The earlier cars came with a 4-litre, but this later car comes with a 4.2. And of course, the XKR was launched a year later in 1997, which bolts a supercharger on top, and of course lowers the height, and adds those nice vents to it. The later cars also did away with that strip down the side, which I think dramatically transforms the side profile of the car. And eventually the XK8 and the XKR were discontinued in 2006, making way for its second generation, which is just known as the XK and XKR, and of course other iterations of that car came out later on. So coming to the front now, this is what the X100 generation XK looks like. This being an R variant, you get this very nice mesh grille at the front, and the number plate is moved to the bottom of the car. And earlier cars would have a couple of bars here. Being an XKR, you do get these nostrils on the bonnet, and as I mentioned before, this was going to be called the F-Type, so the shape of the grille resembles the E-Type, the bonnet bulge also resembles the E-Type, and of course the bonnet itself is low and long. These headlights, again, they somewhat resemble the E-Type, but not by much. Coming around to the side, the XKRs came with a lower ride height, and you get these really nice wheels, and of course you got R branding on the calipers. These wheels are even made by BBS, and of course these are 20-inch wheels, which back in 2003 were absolutely massive. Coming around to the side, of course there is no moulding on the side on this later car. General silhouette, I think, looks very, very nice, and I think it's a brilliant car given their circumstances. Personally, I prefer the X150 generation, but this is still a looker. If I had to be pedantic, the back end does look a little bulbous. This was Jaguar intending to make the boot big enough for a set of golf clubs. Coming around to the back, once again a little bulbous, but not a deal breaker. The taillights somewhat resemble the X300 and X308 XJ, and of course you got your Jaguar script here and another Jaguar emblem. This particular car has no leapers at all, just this one and the script, and of course your obligatory XKR emblem and your obligatory twin exit exhaust pipes. This is what your key looks like. It looks exactly like the ones you get in a Ford Ka, from the 90s, and this was also the time when the key fob was separate to the key itself. Again, it does look a bit generic, but at least you do get your Jaguar emblem once again. Forgot to mention you do get this lip spoiler on this R variant. Opening the boot now. These earlier cars came with a traditional saloon boot, with the later cars coming with a hatchback. Here's what looks like the original grille with the cutouts for the bars, and this is how much capacity this boot area has. Again, very big, but the nature of this saloon boot opening does mean you can't fit too many things through this narrow opening. That being said, you do get a nice tether down point here. Showing its age, you do get an extending aerial here, which goes up when you turn on the radio. Coming inside now. Again, being an R variant, you get these R kick plates. This handbrake I'll get to later on. And this is what the door card looks like. This particular car has two-tone interior, so you got this really nice leather here, and soft touch plastic. And chrome door handles were very stylish back in its day. And you even get memory seats in this particular one. These window switches scream Ford. Now coming inside, I'm completely wrapped around in this soft light colour material, a mixture of fabric and leather, and also wood. Strangely, the wood on the steering wheel is different to the wood on the dash. This steering wheel, for my liking, is a bit too thin-rimmed. Again, you get a mixture of bespoke Jaguar and Ford's parts bin specials. So this is my point of view. Once again, a face as opposed to a leaper. The XK8 was one of the first Jaguars to have its speedo read 1030/50. And of course you got 3 recessed pods, which in this R variant are silver rimmed as well. But for a Jaguar they are quite basic in design. The steering wheel does look like it came from the Blue Oval, especially with these shortcut buttons. And over here, these indicator stalks are most certainly from the Blue Oval. To me they do cheapen up the experience just a little bit. Same with the wipers. This was also back in the day when field doors were released by a button. Same with the boot. Being an R variant, you do get alloy pedals, but they do look a bit Subaru-esque in this case. Now I mentioned about the handbrake. Notice that it's over here as opposed to on the center console, and it's also down. So to operate the handbrake, you pull it up as usual, but then it goes back down. So it's in the same position whether it's on or off. And to release the handbrake, you have to lift it again, press the button, and then it goes back down. But that being said, all XK8s and XKRs came with this J-gate automatic selector. Well, they call it a J-gate, but it almost looks like a U. This was from a time when buttons were everywhere, so this was a techie car for its time, but still, single zone climate control, rear and front demisters are these massive buttons, and of course the direction you want your climate controls to go are operated here. Luckily this car does have heated seats, rear and front fog lights, a massive button for your hazards, and a massive button to turn off your stability control. But of course if you wanted present day technology to fit in here, it is impossible, which is why I think it's best for them to move to touchscreens. You also get these 3 dials on the centre of the dash below the air vents. One for your battery, one for your clock, and one for your oil temperature. Okay, bit of an inconvenient here, the audio has decided to go away, but here I am talking about the mismatching wood trims found on the wheel and dash. I then show you the glove box, which is very generous, especially for a GT car. There's the passenger side mounted bonnet releaser. The seats are very lovely, nice bolsters on the lower back but none on the top. And again, it's very soft leather. There are some bolsters on the headrest, and you get some very tiny seats in the back. Being a 90s car, there is a cigarette lighter and an ashtray, which you can also use as a coin holder. Despite being conceived in the 90s, you do get a couple of cup holders. They are fairly flimsy, and interestingly, they are well damped. You do get a storage cubby below the armrest with a USB adapter. There's a chrome hinge fitted on, only on one side, and if you drop the armrest, the cup holders open. And here's me showing you the headlining. Nice and clean, but nothing much to show. And here's me attempting to get to the back seats of the XKR. And as you can see that I'm struggling to get there. There were 25p change found on the rear footwell. And here's me struggling to get in, of course. But I finally make my way in. It's so tight back there, I couldn't even put the seat back to its original position. And my head is touching the ceiling with very tight foot space and no center armrest. Okay, so that's the exterior and interior done now. So let's see what this car is like to drive. So yes, interestingly the seats are cream, but the seat belts are brown. Oh, gotta stick this thing inside. There we go. Oh, well, it's here. Let's put the window down. It is an AJ V8. Sounds brilliant. Steering wheel. They still use the same steering wheel adjuster today. There we go. Revs are finally dropped, so the whole car shakes. So yes, window. These aren't one-touch windows, so press and hold. Now let's make our way. This is how the J-gate works. So it's currently in park. That's reverse. That's neutral. And that's drive. And to use manual mode, you simply move it to this side of the J. So 2, 3, 4, 5 with an S button here. But let's see what it's like on drive. Okay, setting off. Okay, so let's go left on here. Acceleration is brutal, and of course this is a rear-wheel drive performance Jaguar. The footrest in this car is very, very generous. Progressive brakes, so left on here. And of course visibility is brilliant. Annoyingly, the key and the key fob dangle onto my knee, which is very, very annoying. That's also why in Saab cars they move them onto the center console. The positioning of the indicator stalks are a little confusing. They're a lot lower down than where I expect them to be. Of course, this is an older V8, so the sound is always there. Let's see what it's like on sport mode. revs hold on for longer. Let's see what it's like in manual mode. So it's a 5-speed box. So that's gear 4, that's gear 3, that's gear 2. Being an old school Mercedes slush box, there is a slight delay when operating manually. Yeah, I'd say there's about an entire second delay in response. Let's just put it back into drive for now. Also, not the most well damped of gear selectors, I should say. And we're in traffic. Pedals feel very nicely weighted, and those 3 dials on the center do somewhat feel Bentley-esque. Somewhat rush hour here in Newport. Steering wheel doesn't feel as assisted as the newer cars. Here's an opportunity. The supercharger really whines in this car. I feel like the whine in the newer cars are a little muted, but this one sings beyond 3,000 revs. Back on the dual carriageway. Yep, the steering isn't the best, and of course there's no shoulder support despite being an R. Put it back into manual. Yep, there's just too much delay in changing gears, so in this car you're better off leaving it in drive. There we go. Very twitchy accelerator. And again, green lights. Another set of reds. Seriously, the keys really do get a bit annoying. Since we're in the city of Newport, let's see what it's like to cruise in. The center console, I think, was originally designed for left-hand drive because the dial for the fan speed is a bit too far for my liking. So yes, into a 20 zone. So the thing with Wales is that all their residential speed limits are now 20. Very nice houses here. It's not too hard to maneuver in this very narrow Newport housing estate. Steering wheel is very, very keen to self-center. It can handle very well, it just can't, these seats just can't hold me in very well. Off we go. So let's see what it's like to cruise our way back to the compound. Also, like I mentioned, this was made during Ford's ownership of Jaguar, so the fact that they gave you cup holders in a car that started production in 1996 is very, very generous. Normally most European car manufacturers don't bother at all, or they give you separate afterthought ones for North American markets. So that is definitely a bonus of its time. Personally, this is the perfect kind of car for me. It's a GT car, and of course, being an R, it does the performance stuff very well. Bit of a Jekyll and Hyde car. It can do both things very well. I also like the fact that there are 3 cowl dials. I think Jaguar could have done a bit more with them. The needles look like they came from an alarm clock. Whilst I mentioned there were no leapers on the car, there's a tiny one on the clock. Seriously, this may have been a performance car back in its day, but taking roundabout turns at moderate speed is very unwieldy. But that being said, let's head back to the compound and finalize this video. These tight turns, I feel like I'm going to fall off again. Even at 20, a sharp turn feels like I'm going to fall off. And of course this is a 20 because we're in Wales. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching me try out this Jaguar XKR X100. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you are new, ring the bell to stay up to speed, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.